The chamber of the Galactic Council was a monument of power and arrogance. It floated at the center of the galaxy, suspended above a black hole wrapped in light, surrounded by the banners of 1,000 worlds. Every seat was filled. Creatures of every shape and size sat in tiers that reached up into the shadows, their voices mixing in a roar of languages. The Council of Worlds had gathered to pass judgment on a new species, humanity. The great doors opened with a low hum. A small group of humans stepped inside, their footsteps echoing through the marble floor. At their front walked Ambassador Rhea Dalton, tall, steady, and calm despite the piercing stares around her. Behind her were 3 aides, silent and composed, their faces unreadable under the glowing ceiling that shifted with starlight. The chamber quieted as they approached the central podium, a circular platform surrounded by layers of alien representatives. At the far end, the supreme speaker of the council rose. He was enormous, a being made of translucent flesh and moving light. His 6 eyes focused on Rhea. His voice rolled through the air like thunder. "Humans of Earth," he said, "you stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your aggression. Your colonies have destroyed Andrak's fleets. Your ships have ignored Council protocols, and your world prepares for war. Do you deny these actions?" Rhea raised her head. Her voice was clear, her tone calm. "We do not deny them," she said, "but you leave out the part where the Andrak's Dominion attacked one of our settlements first. 10,000 civilians, no weapons, no provocation. They died begging for help that never came." The speaker's eyes glowed brighter. "You were supposed to appeal to the Council for mediation, not retaliate with destruction." Rhea took a slow breath. "We did appeal. The request was denied. You called it a regional matter, so we handled it ourselves." A wave of murmurs filled the room. Dozens of alien delegates hissed, whispered, or clicked their tongues. To them, humans were still newcomers, fragile creatures who should have bowed to older powers. But they were learning now that humans did not bow easily. A representative from the Andrak's Dominion, his body covered in metallic scales, leaned forward and spoke in a cold voice. "You are primitives. You overreact. A mining station was unfortunate collateral. You have no right to destroy entire fleets for one mistake." Rhea's eyes met his without a flicker of fear. "You murdered a colony of children. You call it collateral. We call it murder." The chamber erupted into sound again. Some shouted for calm, others for punishment. The council guards, tall and insectoid, shifted their weapons toward the humans. Rhea didn't move. She waited until the noise began to die. Then she leaned forward slightly and spoke, her words cutting through the chaos. "We are not here to argue," she said. "We are here to tell you that we will not bargain with murderers. If the Andrak's Dominion believes they can kill humans without consequence, they are wrong. If this council chooses to protect them, then you share their guilt." The room went silent. The words were heavy and no one dared to interrupt. Rhea stood motionless under the council's cold light, her expression unreadable. The supreme speaker spoke again, this time more cautious. "Earth is young and untested. You will learn that survival depends on compromise. You cannot threaten the entire council." Rhea turned slightly, her voice steady. "We don't threaten. We promise." A deep silence followed. Somewhere in the upper tiers, an alien recorder captured her words and transmitted them across the galactic network. Billions of beings watched as the small human stood before a sea of empires and did not flinch. The speaker's voice lost its patience. "You think you can fight the Dominion alone? They control 400 worlds. You have only one." Rhea smiled faintly. "Then they'll find out what one world can do when it's angry." The speaker pounded his staff. "You will withdraw your fleets from Andrak space immediately, or the council will sanction your world." Rhea didn't blink. "Then do it. Sanction us. Isolate us. Threaten us. We'll still defend our people." Her aides behind her exchanged brief glances, knowing the moment was being watched across the galaxy. To stand alone against the council was unthinkable. But humanity's calm defiance was more frightening than any weapon. Suddenly, a new sound filled the chamber, a deep pulse from the communications array above. The council screens lit up with a signal marked in ancient code. The aliens stared in confusion. The encryption was old, pre-galactic, human naval code from centuries before they'd joined the council. No one could break it. Rhea looked up as the projection changed. The signal came from Earth itself, a simple message in human script. Only she and her team understood it, and she smiled slightly as she read. The message said, Proceed. Authorization granted. She turned back to the speaker. You have your answer, she said quietly. Earth stands by its actions. The speaker's body rippled with light. Then this session is concluded. The council will deliberate on your punishment. Rhea stepped down from the platform. As she walked toward the great doors, the council erupted again, shouts, threats, and demands echoing across the chamber. But she didn't look back. Her aides followed, their steps measured and silent. When the doors closed behind them, one of her aides spoke softly. Ambassador, do you think they'll go through with the sanctions? Rhea looked at him, her expression cold. Yes, she said. And the Andrax will strike next. That's what they do when they think someone's cornered. The aide frowned. Then what's our next move? Rhea walked through the long crystal corridor, the stars of the galactic core shining through the transparent walls. She stopped for a moment and looked at the void. They believe we'll beg, she said quietly. They believe fear will make us kneel. Let's make sure they're wrong. Far away on the council's upper tiers, the Andrax representative watched the humans depart. He whispered into his comlink, his voice sharp. Mobilize the fleet. We end them before they can rally. The Supreme Speaker heard the whisper but said nothing. Deep down, he was curious. He had seen many species fall after defying the council, yet something about these humans unsettled him. Their silence was too calm, their confidence too deliberate. That night, across the galaxy, fleets began to move. Andrax warships departed from their moons, heading toward the Sol border. News of their mobilization spread fast. The council watched and waited, certain that humanity would soon plead for mercy. But on Earth, the skies above the planet shimmered with hidden energy fields. A quiet network of satellites began to shift positions. In orbit around Mars, a fleet of black ships activated silent engines, disappearing from radar as they moved into deep space. Rhea returned to the human embassy, standing before the window that looked toward the stars. She didn't smile, but her eyes reflected determination. They think silence means fear, she said softly. Let's teach them it means preparation. Back in the council chamber, the speaker received one last transmission before the record of the session closed. It was a human message intercepted from an encrypted channel. The translation was incomplete, but one phrase repeated clearly through the static. You mistake silence for mercy. And in that moment, for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council felt something it had long forgotten. Unease. The humans had spoken their warning, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The vast chamber of the Galactic Council was silent as the humans entered once again. The air inside shimmered faintly, alive with the energy of thousands of alien minds connected through neural links. From the balconies above, delegates of every known species stared down with suspicion and unease. The humans had been called to account once more, summoned to explain their latest actions. The Andrax Dominion had reported a catastrophic loss. 3 fleets destroyed near the border of Sol space. The council demanded answers. At the center podium stood Captain Elias Ward, representing Earth this time. He was not a diplomat. He wore no ceremonial robe, only the dark uniform of the Earth Defense Command. His face was calm, his voice steady, but his eyes were sharp and cold. Every movement of his was measured, as if every gesture had already been calculated. The Supreme Speaker's body pulsed with light as he began the hearing. Captain Ward of Earth, he said in a deep, resonant voice, the destruction of 3 Andrax fleets constitutes an act of war. The council forbade retaliation. Explain your people's defiance. Elias looked up at the towering figure. We didn't start this, he said evenly. They crossed into our border. They fired first. We finished it. The Andrax representative, a tall reptilian creature with silver eyes, slammed his clawed hand on the desk. Lies! We sent patrols to secure disputed space. Your ships ambushed them. Elias didn't react. You invaded a human colony world. We warned you not to. We only acted when you refused to leave. The chamber buzzed with low murmurs. The council guards tensed, their weapons humming softly. The speaker raised his hand for silence. Your forces annihilated more than 2,000 Andrax ships. That cannot be justified as defense. Elias turned slowly toward him. They came to kill. We made sure they couldn't. The speaker's voice darkened. And you broadcasted their surrender codes to the entire council network. Was that meant as intimidation? Elias replied without hesitation. No, it was proof. Proof that the Andrax attacked us and that they were beaten fairly. We wanted the galaxy to see the truth. There was a pause. The aliens looked at one another, whispering through their translators. The humans were not begging, not pleading. They were too calm, too composed. Even when surrounded by powers older and larger than their own, they stood as if they belonged there. The speaker leaned forward. "Do you expect us to believe you acted in restraint? That you only defend yourselves?" Elias nodded once. "We don't conquer. We don't occupy. We protect what's ours." The chamber fell quiet again. His words hung in the air like a threat disguised as a statement. The council could feel something in humanity that made them uneasy, not arrogance but conviction. The Andrax delegate hissed. "You think you can fight us all, human? You think your little world can survive if the council unites against you?" Elias looked up at him, expression unreadable. "We don't think," he said softly. "We prepare." The speaker motioned to end the hearing, but before he could, a council aide rushed in, holding a glowing data crystal. "Breaking report," the aide announced. "Andrax fleets destroyed again. At Proxima Gate, no survivors." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Andrax delegate turned sharply toward Elias. "You planned this," he shouted. "You timed this attack during the hearing." Elias raised an eyebrow. "You shouldn't have attacked us in the first place." The council broke into chaos. Voices of every species clashed in a storm of outrage and disbelief. The humans had struck again, swiftly and efficiently, even as they were being questioned. It wasn't defiance, it was demonstration. The speaker struck his staff against the floor, demanding order. The lights dimmed to red. "Humanity will stand down immediately," he ordered. "No further engagements will be tolerated." Elias looked at the towering being without fear. "That's not your decision to make," he said quietly. "The Andrax killed civilians. You all knew it. You debated while they murdered. We decided we'd handle it ourselves." The speaker's eyes glowed brighter. "You risk the stability of this galaxy." Elias stepped closer to the edge of the platform. "Then maybe it needs to be shaken." For a moment no one spoke. The humans' calm defiance spread like cold fire through the chamber. The speaker dismissed them abruptly, declaring a recess while the council deliberated. Outside, in the endless hall of mirrors that surrounded the chamber, Elias met with two human officers who had been waiting. They spoke in low voices. "The Proxima Gate fleets were successful," one said. "All enemy ships neutralized." Elias nodded. "And the losses?" "Minimal. They didn't even get close to our line." "Good," Elias said. "What's the status of the second wave?" "They're moving through the gravitational corridor now. Hidden signatures. No one's detected them yet." Elias turned back toward the chamber doors. Through the transparent wall he could see the glowing disk of the galactic core. It pulsed with light like a living heart. "The council will panic," he said quietly. "They'll think we're reckless. Let them. The more they underestimate us, the better." Inside the chamber, the council began to argue among themselves. Some demanded humanity's immediate removal from the assembly. Others argued that the Andrax had broken the treaty first. The smaller civilizations, those long oppressed by the stronger ones, watched the events with interest. For the first time, someone had stood up to the great powers and won. When Elias re-entered, the speaker looked exhausted, his form flickering faintly. "You humans have made your point," he said. "But know this, the council will not allow lawless vengeance. If you continue, sanctions will be imposed." Elias tilted his head. "Sanctions won't stop us. You can cut trade, isolate our systems, call us dangerous. It won't change what happened." The speaker glared down at him. "You are playing a dangerous game." Elias met his gaze evenly. "It's not a game when people die." The Andrax delegate leaned forward, his voice dripping with venom. "You will regret this." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe, but not today." He turned and walked away. The humans left the chamber again, their boots echoing through the vast hall. As the doors sealed shut behind them, the speaker spoke to the council in a low voice. "Issue the alert. Designate humanity as a volatile civilization. They are to be watched closely." The term echoed through the chamber. Galaxy alert. Humanity was now marked as unstable, unpredictable, and dangerous. Yet even as the council made its decree, a different kind of message was spreading across the stars. Footage of the battle at Proxima Gate, human ships moving with terrifying precision, was leaking into public networks. Alien citizens watched in silence as they saw a handful of human vessels outmaneuver entire Andrax armadas. No one understood how they had done it. The ships appeared out of nowhere, struck in silence, and vanished again without a trace. Back aboard his transport, Elias stood at the observation deck, watching the starfield slip by. His aide approached quietly. "The Council's declared a galaxy alert," the aide said. Elias didn't look away from the stars. "Good," he said softly. "That means they're finally paying attention." The aide hesitated. "Sir, do you think they'll unite against us?" Elias smiled faintly. "If they do, they'll have to agree on something for the first time in centuries. That'll take them a while." He turned away from the window, his reflection fading into the glass as the ship entered jump space. The last words he spoke were almost a whisper. "Let them call us dangerous. It's better than being ignored." Far away in the dark reaches of Andrax space, human ships moved unseen between shattered fleets, silent, invisible, and unstoppable. The galaxy was watching, and for the first time in millennia, it was afraid. The great hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with cold light as humanity stood before it again. The chamber was filled to its highest tiers, thousands of alien delegates whispering, hissing, and murmuring in their strange languages. The tension was heavier than before. The walls themselves seemed to hum with the voices of 1,000 worlds. At the center, a human delegation waited silently, their faces calm and unreadable. Leading them was Ambassador Mara Kell, a woman with gray eyes and a voice so steady it seemed to still the air around her. This was not humanity's first time in the Council, but it felt like a trial of survival. The Andrax Dominion had called for Earth's removal from the Council, demanding that humans be declared a rogue species. The Council's supreme speaker stood tall in his pillar of light, 6 eyes narrowing as he gazed down. "Ambassador Kell of Earth," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "Your world stands accused of destabilizing galactic order. The Andrax Dominion claims you have waged an unprovoked war, occupied neutral systems, and refused the Council's authority. What do you have to say in defense of your people?" Mara's gaze never wavered. She spoke slowly, her voice clear. "We did not start this war. The Andrax murdered civilians on Cora 9. The Council ignored our pleas for justice, so we acted. We do not regret defending our own." A low hiss rippled through the tiers. The Andrax delegate rose, tall, armored, eyes burning with anger. "Lies! You use tragedy as an excuse to seize power. You strike in the shadows, you twist truth into justification. You are dangerous." Mara turned her head slightly toward him. "We strike in defense. You call that dangerous because you are not used to anyone fighting back." The Andrax slammed his claw against the railing, sparks flying. "You dare!" The speaker's staff slammed against the floor, sending a shockwave of silence through the hall. "Enough," he said. "The Council will determine Earth's fate." Mara remained calm, though her aides beside her shifted nervously. "Before you decide our fate," she said softly, "perhaps you should consider your own. The Andrax are not the only ones responsible for what's happening." A murmur spread through the tiers. The speaker's tone hardened. "Explain yourself." "Your council," Mara said, "has grown too comfortable with corruption. You protect aggressors because they're powerful. You let small civilizations die because it's easier than standing up to tyrants. You call that stability. We call it cowardice." Her words cut through the air. The aliens stared in disbelief. No one had ever spoken to the council like that. Even the speaker faltered for a moment. "You overstep your bounds," he warned. Mara stepped closer to the light of the podium. "No, we've been silent too long. While you debated, the Andrax destroyed 2 colonies. While you argued, they took slaves from the border worlds. And while you wrote speeches, we stopped them. You don't like that we acted without your permission. But maybe you should ask why your permission was worth so little." The chamber broke into chaos. Shouts and protests echoed from every direction. Some delegates demanded punishment. Others whispered among themselves, uncertain. The speaker tried to restore order, but the storm had already begun. Far above, news drones hovered, broadcasting the entire hearing across the galaxy. Billions watched as one human ambassador stood alone against the greatest power in known space. The speaker's voice rose above the noise. "Your insolence will not save you. The Council's authority is absolute." Mara met his gaze calm as ever. "Authority means nothing without honor." The speaker opened his mouth to respond, but an aide rushed to his side, whispering urgently. His expression changed. The entire chamber quieted as the central holographic display came to life, showing a live transmission. The image was chaotic: smoke, flames, and broken ships drifting in orbit over a blue-white planet. The Andrax insignia burned on the hulls. The voice of a frightened broadcaster filled the chamber. Breaking news. The Andrax Dominion's capital fleet has fallen. Repeating, their fleet has fallen. Reports confirm they surrendered to human forces without resistance. A wave of disbelief rippled through the council. The Andrax delegate froze, his mouth opening soundlessly. Mara didn't speak. She didn't need to. The speaker turned to her slowly. "You planned this," he said, his voice low. "While we held this hearing, your fleet attacked their home system." She looked back at him. "We didn't attack. We intercepted a military convoy. The Andrax leadership surrendered before we fired a shot. They were expecting us. They knew what was coming." The speaker's form flickered with emotion. "You have destabilized half the galaxy." Mara's tone was steady. "No, we stopped the ones who already had." The Andrax delegate roared, his claws slamming against the railing. "You can't control all of us. You will burn for this." Mara's gray eyes turned toward him. "Maybe, but not today." Outside the council chambers, chaos spread through the halls. Dozens of reporters rushed to broadcast updates. Smaller civilizations began sending transmissions to Earth, asking for negotiations and alliances. They had seen how quickly humans acted, how efficiently they fought. Some feared them. Others admired them. But no one ignored them. Inside the chamber, the council debated for hours. The speaker tried to rally the members to condemn Earth, but the fractures had already begun. Several delegations withdrew their support, quietly announcing neutrality. The rest argued endlessly, their unity breaking apart. At last, when the hall was nearly empty, the speaker turned to Mara one final time. "You think you've won," he said bitterly. "You think the galaxy will kneel before you." Mara shook her head. "No, we don't want the galaxy to kneel. We just want it to stop killing the innocent." The speaker's light dimmed slightly. "You've set something in motion that cannot be undone." "Maybe it shouldn't be undone," she replied. She turned and left the chamber, her footsteps echoing against the stone. Outside, she paused before the massive windows overlooking the galactic core. Her reflection merged with the endless light. Behind her, aides whispered about new alliances forming, fleets moving, and systems rebelling against the Council's authority. The galaxy was changing, and everyone could feel it. One aide spoke softly. "Ambassador, the Council will retaliate. They can't allow this." Mara looked out at the swirling light of the stars. "They'll try, but we don't rely on permission. We rely on preparation." "Do you think they're afraid of us now?" the aide asked. She smiled faintly. "Not yet, but they will be." Far away in the Andrax home system, human ships floated silently above the surrendered fleet. No celebration, no speeches, only quiet efficiency. The galaxy's most feared empire had fallen without a final battle. The image spread across every channel, every system. To some, humanity looked like saviors. To others, they looked like a threat beyond comprehension. Back in the council's shadowed hall, the speaker stood alone, staring at the empty seats where hundreds of empires once sat united. He whispered to himself, his voice almost trembling. This is how it begins." The galaxy was no longer balanced. The council's authority was fading. And somewhere, in the quiet dark between the stars, humanity watched it happen, calm, patient, and ready for whatever came next. The great hall of the Galactic Council trembled with tension. Every representative, from the insectoid delegations to the crystalline beings that shimmered like living prisms, had turned their eyes toward the humans standing at the center of the circular chamber. The ceiling stretched high above, layered in silver lattice and pulsating lights that represented the stars under the Council's control. And yet, for all its grandeur, it felt suffocating now, choked with disbelief at what the humans had just declared. Earth's envoy, Commander Hayes, stood motionless in his dark uniform, the blue and white crest of humanity glinting faintly on his chest. Across from him towered the wreath-high Chancellor, a creature of translucent skin and branching veins that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. Its voice rippled through the chamber, carried by translation drones. "Humanity refuses arbitration?" Hayes did not flinch. "We don't bargain with murderers," he said simply, his voice calm but cold enough to cut through the air like a blade. 1,000 voices erupted. The translators struggled to process the flood of reactions, growls, shrieks, mechanical distortions of speech. The council chamber descended into chaos. Some shouted that humanity was reckless, others that they were arrogant. At the back of the hall, A lean human woman named Dr. Amina Reyes stood silently beside the council's data terminal. Her job was not diplomacy. She was there to monitor every reaction, every subtle change in tone and behavior. Humanity had not come unprepared. They knew this confrontation would come, and every movement, every word, was part of a strategy that had been rehearsed for weeks. The council's speaker, a being made entirely of coalesced gas and faint electric arcs, finally restored order. "Commander Hayes," it said, its voice echoing from multiple directions at once. "You stand before the united voice of the galaxy. The species you accuse of murder, the Varn Coalition, is a council member in good standing. Their actions were part of a sanctioned operation. You will retract your accusation." Hayes's expression remained unreadable. Sanctioned operation? That operation wiped out a human colony on Helion 3, 20,000 civilians dead. Your council calls that sanctioned? The gas being flickered, its form momentarily distorting. Collateral casualties occur in conflict zones. Hayes took a step forward, and the human security escort shifted slightly, eyes scanning the alien guards that lined the edges of the chamber. "Then let me be clear," he said. "Earth no longer recognizes this council's authority. You've allowed genocide under your laws, and you expect us to play diplomat while our people burn. That era is over." The council fell into stunned silence. No one, no species, not in centuries, had ever said such words to the assembly. Not since the age of expansion, when the last great rebellion had been crushed under the council's fleets. Dr. Reyes quietly activated her wrist console, transmitting encrypted data to orbit. Within minutes, humanity's ambassadorial fleet received the order to withdraw from the neutral system. The human ships began powering up their FTL drives, ignoring all council communication requests. Then the holographic projection at the center of the chamber changed, an automatic system that visualized active diplomatic sectors. Hundreds of star systems dimmed one by one as human embassies across the galaxy severed their data relays. The map of the Milky Way was filled with sudden voids where Earth's presence had once connected. "They're disconnecting from the galactic network," one delegate gasped. "They're isolating themselves." The speaker's form pulsed angrily. "You will not survive alone, humans. The Council maintains peace, trade, and technology. Without it, your species will regress." Hayes looked up at the Council's shining core and spoke with the quiet conviction that came from generations of endurance. "You misunderstand us. We didn't reach the stars because we wanted your peace. We reached them because no one else would protect us." The speaker tried to regain control, its tone sharp. "If you turn your back on the Council, the sanctions will destroy your civilization. No trade, no fuel, no access to hyperlanes." Amina Reyes finally spoke, her voice calm but edged with an odd satisfaction. "You think we rely on your networks. You've never understood humanity. We build our own when the world refuses us." The alien delegates exchanged uneasy looks. The humans had always been strange, far too adaptable, too fast to reverse engineer technologies, too quick to recover from crises. Even after only a century in the galactic community, they had gone from newcomers to strategic players. The speaker hesitated, sensing something shift in the room. The humans were too composed. No desperation, no pleading. It was as if this confrontation had been calculated. Then the Council's data monitors flickered again. Every secure communication node connected to human colonies began broadcasting encrypted messages. They weren't distress calls, they were commands. One by one, human trade outposts shut down, satellites went dark, and diplomatic envoys quietly vanished from foreign worlds. The humans were leaving the galactic stage completely, but it wasn't just withdrawal. Reports began flooding in that human contractors had sabotaged major relay stations before departing. Navigation routes across multiple sectors became unusable. Dozens of systems reported sudden blackouts in communication networks previously managed by human-engineered AI systems. "Are they attacking our infrastructure?" shouted one insectoid representative. Hayes gave a thin, humorless smile. "We're just cleaning up what's ours. You'll manage, I'm sure." The speaker's form flared, electrical arcs filling the chamber. "This is treason against the galactic order. Do you understand the consequence?" Hayes met the speaker's gaze unflinchingly. "We do." The council chamber erupted into chaos again, voices overlapping in fury. But Hayes simply turned and walked away, Amina following in silence. The guards didn't move to stop them. For all their power, none of the council species dared to touch the humans now. As the delegation reached their transport bay, Amina spoke softly. "They'll never forgive this." Hayes nodded. "They don't have to." He looked out at the stars through the bay's transparent barrier. "We didn't come here to make friends. We came to make sure no one else decides what justice means for humanity." Outside the station, the human flagship Resolute disengaged from its dock and accelerated toward the blackness of space. Hundreds of ships followed, vanishing into the void, leaving behind a shocked and silent council. Back in the chamber, the speaker finally broke the stillness. "They've chosen exile," it said. "The humans will not last a cycle without our protection." But deep in the darkness between stars, something ancient stirred, a vast network of dormant satellites, hidden stations, and quiet worlds that had not answered to the Council in centuries. Humanity had not been idle. They had prepared for this day long before the Council ever knew their name. As the galaxy watched in disbelief, the humans disappeared beyond the reach of galactic law. And somewhere, far from the lights of the Council's worlds, a single message began transmitting across the old Terran channels, repeating in dozens of human languages. "We stand alone. Let the galaxy remember what happens when murderers ask humanity to kneel." The chamber of the Galactic Council was darker than usual. Every seat was filled, thousands of delegates representing hundreds of species, but no one spoke. The silence was heavier than any war announcement. At the center of the grand circular hall, under the gleaming banners of the Council's authority, stood a holographic image of Earth, suspended above a column of golden light. The planet glowed faintly blue against the void, turning slowly as if mocking the silence that surrounded it. Then with a low hum, the hologram flickered. Data began to pour across the air in alien languages. Every console in the chamber lit up simultaneously with alerts. The Speaker of the Council, a tall creature of shifting energy and light, pulsed sharply. "Report," it demanded. "What is this signal?" A metallic delegate from the Trivon cluster rose from its seat, its mechanical voice steady but cold. "It is not a signal. It is a transmission. From the humans." A whisper ran through the hall like wind through a dead forest. The humans had been gone for years. No one knew where they went or if they survived. The Council had assumed they'd vanished into obscurity. But the transmission changed everything. The hologram stabilized and the blue planet was replaced by the image of a human, Commander Hayes. Older, scarred, but unmistakably alive. His eyes were the same cold gray that had once silenced the chamber. "To the Galactic Council," he began, his voice calm but filled with quiet authority. "You once told us we wouldn't survive without your protection. You were wrong." The entire council froze. Hayes continued, each word deliberate. "You sanctioned the slaughter of our colonies. You called it peacekeeping. You demanded that we kneel, that we submit to your rules. But humanity does not kneel. Not to kings. Not to gods. Not to your council." Several alien representatives shouted for the feed to be cut, but the transmission wouldn't stop. The systems were locked out from within. Even the speaker could not override it. Hayes's expression hardened. "You wanted to erase us from the galaxy. Instead, you made us stronger. You forced us to grow in the dark, alone, surrounded by enemies. And now you will understand what that means." Behind him, the image widened to reveal a fleet, massive, sleek, and glowing faintly with human insignias. Entire armadas filled the void behind him. The ships were unlike anything the Council had ever seen. They weren't powered by Council-approved technology. Their hulls radiated with strange energy signatures. Humanity had not just survived. They had advanced, beyond the Council's reach. The speaker flickered violently, light distorting in agitation. "Impossible. Those energy readings exceed known limits of plasma propulsion." An amphibious representative croaked nervously. "They've developed independent FTL arrays. How?" "They were cut off." Another delegate hissed. "They must have made contact with the exiled civilizations, the ones beyond the outer rim." The speaker turned its luminous gaze toward the display again. "End this transmission now." But the feed continued. Hayes leaned slightly closer to the visual recorder. "We don't seek war," he said. "We only demand one thing: justice for the lives your council took. The Varn Coalition destroyed Helion 3 under your sanction. You called them lawful. We call them murderers, and humanity does not bargain with murderers." The words hit the chamber like a thunderclap. The statement was clear. The title of his speech would be whispered across the stars for generations. Outside, the galaxy shuddered. Dozens of outposts near council-controlled borders began losing contact one after another. Drones and satellites captured strange readings, fleets moving silently through deep space. The humans were back. The speaker's voice rose sharply. "What are your demands, human?" Hayes's hologram flickered slightly, his expression turning grim. "We already told you. You gave the Varn permission to kill our people. We are taking from them what they took from us. Their fleets will be erased, their world silenced. Do not interfere." "You cannot," the speaker began, but Hayes interrupted, his tone steady. "We can, and we will." The image cut off. A deep rumble shook the chamber floor. Real-time hollows lit up across the walls. The Varn home system, Varnak Prime, was under attack. Massive flashes of light tore through its orbital stations. The defense grid collapsed within minutes. The council watched in stunned horror as their displays filled with casualty reports. The humans weren't bluffing. It wasn't just war. It was precise, surgical annihilation. Commander Hayes's fleet moved through Varn territory like a shadow, targeting only the military infrastructure. Civilian ships were spared, evacuated even before the human ships turned their weapons on the planet's core facilities. Within hours, the entire Varn coalition ceased to exist. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. Species that had once mocked humanity now shouted for action. Armies were mobilized. Fleets launched. But even as they prepared for retaliation, new data came in. Human ships were vanishing from sensors again. "They're using some kind of phase drive," one engineer reported. "They move between systems without entering hyperspace lanes." "Then find them," screamed another delegate. "We must retaliate before..." Before anyone could finish, the chamber lights flickered again. Another human transmission appeared. This time it wasn't Hayes. It was Dr. Amina Reyes. She stood on what appeared to be a massive station surrounded by blue nebulae. "To the council," she said, her tone calm and precise. "We've concluded our operations against the Varn. Their leadership is gone. Their armies disarmed. Their civilians will be cared for under human oversight until they can rebuild." The speaker hissed in fury. "You dare occupy council space?" Dr. Reyes met its glare without fear. "Council space?" she said quietly. "You forget, Earth was part of this council once. You let others slaughter our people, and now you call us trespassers when we seek justice? No, speaker. You lost that authority the moment you called murder lawful." The chamber fell silent again. Dr. Reyes's expression softened slightly, but her words remained sharp. "Humanity will not threaten your order unless you threaten ours. Stay out of our way, and we will not interfere with your council. But if another world dares raise its weapons against us, we will not negotiate again." The screen faded. For a long time, no one in the Galactic Council spoke. The sound of low static filled the air. The speaker's light dimmed slowly, uncertain, flickering as though exhausted. Then, from the back rows, a crystalline delegate whispered, "They warned us. We should have listened." Across the galaxy, word spread like fire. The humans had returned not as diplomats, but as a force the Council could no longer control. And somewhere, far from the politics and noise of the galactic core, Earth turned quietly on its axis, blue and calm against the black. Its people went about their lives unaware that their home world had once again become a symbol of defiance, a reminder that humanity's greatest weapon was not its ships or its power, but its will. In the end, the galaxy would learn what the Council refused to believe. Humans did not seek war, but they never forgot their dead. And when the galaxy watched in shock, it finally understood the truth behind the message that echoed across the stars. Galaxy alert. Humans don't bargain with murderers.